All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Matty here, and welcome back to a Wacky Wednesday, the first Wacky Wednesday, I guess is the video series. I don't even know what we call this, but I'm calling it Wacky Wednesday. The first Wednesday off-meta showcase of the new season. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't watched these videos yet, I guess if you're new here, every Wednesday we highlight all of sort of the non-meta decks that did well in online tournaments throughout the week. The thing is, we run our PMPT tournament series almost every weekend, and it is the largest weekly tournament series. However, there's a bunch of other tournaments throughout the week, and this gives us an opportunity not only to highlight those tournaments, but also highlight the deck lists for all of those brave warriors choosing to play, non-meta decks to these tournaments. And sometimes they do well. It's actually pretty cool. We're gonna do that today. That's the video. And before we get into it, though, we're gonna talk about the $1,500 cash prize tournament. The biggest tournament in history is what they're calling it. That's what they're saying. That's I don't know. We'll see. But it's run by PGL. It's this Saturday. We're going to be working with them here. We're going to be live streaming this tournament here on the Pocket Mads channel. So you're definitely going to want to play in the tournament. But if you can't play in the tournament, tune into the live stream. Link to register down in the description below. $1,500 cash in the prize pool is crazy. Also, they're raffling off 30 full art Professor's Researches just to participants of the tournament, which is really cool. Quite frankly, super cool. But anyway, that's it. Okay. I don't know. You can tell that I really wasn't super prepared to like make this video, but we're just doing it. We're just doing it anyway. Sometimes, the Wednesday videos are pretty cool. They're pretty chill. All right. Anyway, the first deck we're going to talk about is from the Breakfast Club Standard, number 2, $5 prize pool. And this is going to be definitely one of, I would say, the instances where Houndstone and Gourgiest has done quite well. I would say this is probably the best placement we've seen of this deck so far this season. This is from Boat Thugs Bunny, an incredible username here. He went 9-2-1. I believe he made it all the way to grand finals and ended up losing here to Altaria Greninja, but a very respected performance. We did rank this deck on our tier list yesterday. I think we put this like B tier or maybe C tier, I forget. It's definitely not a bad deck whatsoever. I think there's a lot of different decks that you can play in the game right now that can win, quite honestly. And I think that's really, really cool. And honestly, I think Houndstone and this entire strategy here is very unique. I don't think we have anything else like this in Pokemon Pocket, which is why I'm really excited that we have a deck like this. So if you don't know what Houndstone does, it has the Last Respects attack, which does 50 damage for 2 energies. However, it does 20 more damage for every psychic Pokemon in your discard pile when you use the attack. And to be fair, I wasn't really expecting this to be a relevant attack, but we do have some really key players, some key Pokemon in the metagame right now that are able to discard cards from your hand, and that's what Gourgiest is here to do. Gourgiest is actually just a totally relevant Pokemon, 110 HP, single prize Pokemon, stage 1 for 1 energy to 70 damage. We've actually seen Gourgeist see play in many decks, specifically Altaria, to just consistently be able to KO Oricorios. It's just in general a decent Pokemon. Because it discards a card from your hand, you can just discard Psychic Pokemon from your hand. And I think Klefki is really the only Psychic bench-sitting Pokemon that can like discard itself. So it's also just a useful ability here with Dismantling Keys to discard tool cards and then go to the discard pile. It's pretty cool. This is a really fun deck. Meloetta to draw Psychic Pokemon out of your deck. So the concept here most of the time is you go Meloetta gets KO'd, or you can retreat into Gourgeist and start discarding some Pokemon from your hand. By the end of the game, Houndstone definitely has potential to deal a ton of damage. Just like in the games, the Last Respects attack does more damage the later you are in the game. So that's in general the entire concept of this deck. It's kind of simple. It's very straightforward, but very cool. Very, very cool. And honestly, not a terrible deck whatsoever. Second place at this tournament and 9-2-1. Again, this is probably the best record, the best performance of an individual player playing this deck list so far this season that I've seen. So we had to highlight it here on the channel. Next up, also at the Breakfast Club Standard, is Creamy Lotion playing Meowscarada. And, we talked a lot about Meowscarada, like in the preseason. It was one of the initial cards that was announced or revealed when Paldean Wonders got revealed. And I think that Meowscarada is a really cool Pokemon. We talked about it a lot in yesterday's tier list video because I did put Meowscarada, I think, in the D tier, unfortunately. It's just a sad story of Meowscarada. And quite frankly, here's the deck list. Meowscarada is not a bad Pokemon whatsoever. In fact, if you take a look at its win rates this season, it actually has a really good matchup into Suicune and Greninja, and also a really good matchup into Hydreigon. And those would have been extremely relevant matchups if both of those decks were at the top of the metagame like they were last season. They're just not anymore. And the decks that are at the top of the metagame this season being, Suicune, Excalibur, Bellibolt, Altaria, those are decks that, unfortunately, Meowscarada doesn't do very well into. But this is just one instance of a really, well-built deck list around Meowscarada. Again, I think this is a deck that can win. I'm really curious if we find some other ways to play Meowscarada, or if this card becomes extremely relevant at some point or another. Who knows? Maybe, Greninja decks become more relevant. Maybe Hydreigon decks become more relevant in the future. We just don't really know yet, quite frankly. But right now, I think Meowscarada is struggling just a little bit, but Creamy Lotion goes 8-2 at the same tournament, does fall in top 8, but had almost an incredible run here. Look at all these wins in a row. Did actually beat 4 Excalibur decks in a row, which is absolutely insane. Beat a Blaziken deck, which is somehow, I don't even know how that's possible, and beat Lopunny, Annihilape, and also beat Bellibolt and Zeraora. So again, these are all on paper really bad matchups for Meowscarada, but as Creamy Lotion, showed us here in this run, anything's possible, quite frankly. So Meowscarada has a lot of potential here. He's not even playing Leaf Cape. He's actually playing an aggressive Meowscarada build with Rocky Helmets, which I think is pretty cool. He's got the Meowscarada in there. He's also rocking Arven, and I actually really like Arven. I think it's a very, very underrated card that definitely deserves to see more play. It's specifically useful in decks that I think play Rare Candy and play Tool cards, which, there used to be more of those, quite frankly. I think Suicune Excalibur still does. Hydreigon definitely could have used Arven pretty dramatically, but I really don't think Arven's a bad card. I'm going to come out and say it. I think in decks that usually would play double research, double copycat, you could swap one of those copycats for an Arven, and honestly, it might even be a little bit better, but I don't know if people are really into testing it. One Lily, Ice Pop here, so a little bit of RNG kind of healing factors. Meowscarada, yet another card that's a little bit suspect. He might have built this deck like really early in the season. That might be what this tournament was. I don't know when this tournament was, quite frankly, so it's hard to say. This could have been an early season performance. I don't really know. It's hard to say, but shout out to Creamy Lotion and Meowscarada. Again, I did put a D tier, but here's an example of it doing well, so we're gonna highlight it. That's what we do on Wednesdays. That's what we do. That's what we do here in this video series. Next up from also, I think, the Breakfast Club Standard, number 2, $5. So shout out to this tournament. This is Pokebomb. One of the favorites on the channel here. We cover him all the time. He plays a bunch of really interesting lists. This is, I think, one of the only instances of Skeledirge being, I guess, performing well at a tournament. He went 5-3 at this tournament here from Greece, and just a really cool list. I wanted to highlight this mainly because he's playing Skeledirge, and I know it's not the most incredible record of all time, but Skeledirge is a really strong Pokemon. There's a lot of opportunities for this Pokemon to be quite relevant. I just really like Skeledirge, and quite frankly, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to play this card. I just don't know exactly what those are yet, or if we have those opportunities right now, or if we have to wait a bit longer. I don't know. There's no way that Skeledirge is a bad card. Like, that's for sure. We have Flame Patch in the game. Fire-type Pokemon deal a lot of damage. I think it really lends well to the typical Fire-type Pokemon strategy, which is just dealing a ton of damage to the active Pokemon. We see so many times, there's bench damage, there's, poison, and there's all this different crazy stuff that you can do in the game, but Fire-type decks like to just hit the active Pokemon and KO them, which I think is pretty cool. Skeledirge allows you to do that, quite frankly. So the Passionate Voice ability allows you to discard an energy onto or from Skeledirge, rather, and then basically boosts the damage that your Fire-type active Pokemon does this turn by 50. So plus 50 is a big deal, and that's going to make or break your ability to one-hit KO Pokemon. Blaziken is what we're pairing Skeledirge with here in this deck, which I actually kind of like. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. It's only a 1/1 Torchic Blaziken lineup, which again is part of the sort of the scary part about Skeledirge, or the difficult part about Skeledirge, is that it is a stage 2 Pokemon. So when you're playing it in your deck list, it is kind of taking up a lot of space and a lot of focus points, right? Like, your deck has to really be kind of built around Skeledirge, because you got to play Koko, you got to play Rare Candy. Skeledirge, it doesn't leave a lot of room to play like an actual attacking Pokemon. But I think the underrated aspect of Skeledirge is that it can just also attack on its own. There's no reason why, Skeledirge in the active spot can't be a threat. In fact, with Flame Patch, this thing has 150 HP. It can boost itself with Passionate Voice, and it can just hit for 120. So it's kind of like almost like Hydreigon. You could actually go like, but the issue with Skeledirge, I guess, is that you can't do it on your first turn going second. You'd have to go second on your so you'd have to go second and then on your second turn, which isn't as good as Hydreigon. But if you do go second, Skeledirge on your second turn is actually a very dangerous Pokemon, quite frankly. So here's just one example. Again, I've seen some people play it with Blacephalon. I don't know if they like wanted us to play this with Armarouge. I doubt it. Most fire Pokemon, which is also one of the weird things about Skeledirge, and this is why I think we maybe don't have the partner for it yet. Most fire Pokemon deal a lot of damage anyway, but they discard fire energies with their attack. Blaziken's one example of that. Blacephalon does that. I think Flareon does that. There's a lot of Pokemon that do that. It's just sort of how fire Pokemon attack. So that's why it's strange that you need the energy on Skeledirge, and then you'd have to somehow get that energy back, which we can do that with Flame Patch, but then it's also just tough because the fire Pokemon that's attacking is also discarding an energy. So that's 2 energy discards per turn, and it just kind of feels like a very difficult, it's not easy to be able to do that every turn, right? And I know we have Flame Patch, so maybe you're not supposed to be able to do that every turn. Maybe it is just sort of for a big setup, one-hit KO combo. I don't know. I don't really know, but I like Skeledirge, and here's just an example. Shout out to Pokebomb of Skeledirge doing well. What do you guys think of Skeledirge? Oh, are you playing this card? How are you playing Skeledirge? Let me know. I've seen Armarouge, I've seen Blaziken, I've seen Blacephalon. There might be some opportunities here that are, maybe not even like Pokemon we're really thinking of. Like we have the new Chiyu that could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, I think there's something we can do with Skeledirge. I just don't know what it is yet, and we got to figure that out. Maybe we kind of stay in the single prize, the non-EX sort of territory. I don't know. It's not something I've really tested much so far myself, other than Blacephalon. I actually did really like the Blacephalon list, but, that's just me. Anyway, shout out to Pokebomb. Shout out to Skeledirge. Next up at the Storm's Weekly Standard, which was actually, I think, just yesterday. This is Sararu from Japan. This man goes 10-3 and gets first place with Mega Lopunny and Annihilape. And I did actually make a post about this on our community page, and I was like, listen, this deck just got first place at like a 200-player tournament, and it's a fighting type deck, and it plays Annihilape, which I thought was really cool. Look at the matchup spreads here. This player here beat Altaria, beat Suicune Excalibur, beat Bellibolt. Like, he kind of beat like only meta decks. I mean, he did lose 3 here in day 1, but went on an absolute tear. Ended up just again winning the tournament. Played 4 lightning type decks in day 2 or in Top Cut. But did beat Excalibur twice, including in Grand Finals. So just honestly a really impressive performance here. And this is a very underrated deck list. When I saw Annihilape, I just never thought that this is something that people would play. It didn't make sense to me. Like when I saw it, I was like, well, like why? I mean, I get it. You could go turn 2, rare candy combo and hit for 90, which is definitely strong. But then after that, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And now, again, I guess I sort of just underrated how strong that would be in general. It does 30 damage to itself, which is a lot, but it has 140 HP. So it's not meant to stick around for a long time. It's really just sort of meant to, I guess, just quite frankly, come in sometimes and just be able to kind of get an early knockout, which is pretty cool. But one thing that I just didn't know about Annihilape was that we had the Focus Fist Mankey. This card is actually not bad at all. This is a Mankey that has 50 HP and does 50 damage for 1 fighting energy, but you flip a coin and if tails, it doesn't do anything. That might not seem like it's that strong, but again, we have Will in the game. And one of the other, probably the most prominent fighting type Pokemon in the game is Mega Lopunny, which always kind of just plays Will anyway. So I think this whole deck really does actually wrap up pretty nicely. If you lead Mankey, like, you can just guarantee a 50 damage turn 1 KO on a lot of basic Pokemon, which is really, really cool. But also, like, we have Will in the deck for Mega Lopunny in the late game anyway. And all of these Pokemon have low energy attack costs. So I actually really like this deck. I think it makes a lot of sense. It flows quite well. This was not something I really thought about because I didn't know that this Mankey exists, but I think a really big upside to this deck is that both Mankey and Mega Lopunny can utilize Will pretty effectively. And then between, turn 2 Primeape or Annihilape rare candy combos, like, we can kind of just do a lot of damage like early in the game. So it's a kind of an aggressive deck, a bit of an RNG deck in general because Mega Lopunny, isn't the most consistent thing in the world, but it's never been a bad Pokemon, quite frankly. Lopunny just isn't consistent. It's just the issue with it. And you have to play it with Will, because, like, sure, you could do 180 damage and confuse, but that's only a 25% chance, right? So when you play Will, that brings it up to a 50% chance. And even then, it's kind of sketchy. But I mean, 90 damage and confusion is really not that bad. So when you play Lopunny, you got to play Will. But again, Will works well. Will works well with Mankey. And I actually just really like this deck. I think it's kind of one of the best fighting type decks I've seen in quite some time. Shout out to Sararu. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. From Japan. Leave it to the Japanese players to just cook up something incredible. But yeah, man, I just didn't even know this Mankey was in the game. I'm going to be entirely honest with you, and I love it. I think this is just really cool. The opportunity to KO like a Tadbulb in the active, or like an Oricorio, or like a baby Pokemon, like Mankey is 50 damage is a lot, right? So if you have Will, you can guarantee it. Even if you don't have Will, sometimes it's just you flip the coin. Sometimes you get it. And if you go first, well, then yeah, you can just go into Primeape or Annihilape turn 2 if you draw those cards, and that's pretty cool. That's just, it's a very aggressive deck. I actually just like this deck. I really don't think it's that bad. We'll see how it continues to perform. I've seen some people bring it to a more recent tournament. Some people are playing the 50 HP Baneri, and they're kind of teching in Alicia to the deck. I don't know if any of that really matters that much, but I do like this deck list a lot. So either way, you know, big shout out to Sararu, and shout out to this Lopunny deck. Just a very, very cool placement. I mean, the cool thing about the early in the seasons is that, we just don't know what's going to happen. And the meta development has been extremely interesting this season, because there's so many new decks. What it does is create sort of an unpredictable environment to where maybe some things that nobody ever thought of could come in and do well. And I think this is a really great example of that. Winning a 200 player tournament, sure, like there's luck involved, and I know this deck flips coins, but like you can't play a terrible deck and win a 200 player tournament. Like no matter how lucky you get, the deck has to be somewhat strong. So even if it is like an RNG kind of high roll type deck list, like it's still won, like Gholdengo hasn't been winning tournaments. I think Meowscarada won one tournament. So like it might not be like a totally solidified meta deck, but it can't be terrible. It just can't. Like that's the whole point of winning tournaments. You know what I mean? So pretty cool. Anyway, there it is. Next up is going to be Gholdengo. That's right. So finally, somebody did place well with Gholdengo, and they played it in quite an interesting way. This is Fresby from the Storm's Weekly Standard, number 21. 7-2-1, so he made it to top 16, ended up losing to Magnus on Bellibolt. But this is Skarmory. This is actually like aggro Skarmory Gholdengo, which I really kind of like. I'm not even gonna lie. I think that this Skarmory card needs to be tested more. This is the OG, the Metal Arms Skarmory, which does 50 damage for 1 energy with 80 HP if it has a tool card attached. That's actually very underrated. I think that the 50 damage attacks are really relevant right now. There's a lot of Swablu's going around. There's a lot of Tadbulbs going around. A lot of 50, and also, Baxcalibur's, basic Pokemon. I forget the name of it. It's not Frigibax. That's the sec. I don't. What's the basic version of Baxcalibur? I'm spacing on it. But that's weak to metal. So even though it's got 60 HP, Skarmory does KO it. So this Skarmory card definitely needs some consideration right now. A very, very potent early game aggressive attacker in the metagame right now. And again, we have Metal Core Barrier. So it's like, this Skarmory with Metal Core Barrier, like you have to hit for 130 damage to KO this thing. So there's a lot of staying power with Skarmory. And I actually think it probably might be like the best option to lead off with any steel/metal type deck right now. He is playing one Chingling, I guess, because why not? Just to kind of have a more consistent leadoff option, because you don't really want Gimmighoul in the active ever. So he's just playing one Chingling, I think, as like a buffer. He's got Ice Pops in here. He's got Steel Aprons, Metal Core Barriers, Researchers, Copycats, and a Mars and a Guzma. And again, I know a lot of people are playing Earthworm. I know a lot of people are trying to play Dialga with Gholdengo. None of that has really done very well. So people might have to just sort of reconsider how we're kind of, playing Gholdengo. And I think it kind of makes a little bit more sense than people might think. The thing about Gholdengo is that you don't know where the damage is going, right? You just don't. It's inherently an RNG card. I think everybody's playing Gholdengo in the way that they basically are planning to pile up as many energies into Gholdengo as possible, and then not really deal any damage on the board. So when you come into Gholdengo, you're just expecting it to just sort of win the game itself. But when you're playing it with Skarmory, like Skarmory's dealing a ton of damage. It's putting a ton of pressure on. So even though we might have less energies by the time we get into Gholdengo, there's way more damage on the board. You might have already even KO'd a Pokemon or two with Skarmory, which I think is actually a really smart way to play this deck list. So again, I'm not, Gholdengo in general is just going to be a bit of an inconsistent Pokemon, but it's not a bad Pokemon. You know, it's not terrible. And I think Skarmory's really, really good right now, guys. 7-2-1, Skarmory, Gholdengo. It's something to look into. It's just something to consider, okay? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying we have the data, we have the results, we have the example. Maybe we get in there, maybe we test it out a little bit. That's all I'm saying. I think Skarmory's broken. I think Skarmory's a really good card. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So shout out to Fresby for this particular deck list and his performance here at the tournament. Next up is Rust 2 standard pop-up. Gray Wheels, or Gray Wheel, 6210 from the United States. This, and I'm being dead serious. This is the only Pawmot deck I've seen play somewhat well in tournament. And that's not an exaggeration. Maybe there's other ones. I just haven't seen them, and I checked. So I might have missed it, but 5-2-1 was the record here. I ended up losing to a Magnezone Blissey deck, so I don't know what was going on with this tournament. Tied in round number 6 to Baxcalibur, lost to an Altaria Greninja, but beat a bunch of meta decks, right, in day 1. He did get a bye, I guess, in day 2, but hey. You know, shout out to Gray Wheel. And this is going to be Pawmot, but it's just with Oricorio. So quite simply, you know, I think that this might have been hard carried by Oricorio. I don't want to say that's the case per se, but this Pawmot here can deal 180 damage. And I think everybody understands that that is extremely strong. But the issue with this Pawmot is like, what are we playing it with? You know, like how are we gonna play Pawmot and like also do anything other than just hopefully have this combo? And I think Oricorio really is kind of the only way to do that. I know that, you know, we have Oricorio Magnezone, so there's a lot of like, I think it's really tough because Oricorio is definitely a Pokemon that not many people love to play, but it's extremely effective, especially early season in tournaments. So it does make sense to me that the best way to play Pawmot would be to play it with Oricorio, maybe slow the game down, kind of stall the game out a little bit, allows you to kind of draw your deck, get into Nemona, maybe just pop off. The only other way I could think of playing Pawmot is with Raikou, right? With the extra draw so that you could just even more consistently get the damage off. But, you know, the issue with Pawmot as well is that you can't like Cyrus and then also play Nemona in the same turn. So you really are just about like KOing a Pokemon in the active. And, you know, if you can get that KO and win the game that way, that's really good. But yeah, I think Oricorio just sort of might make the most sense. It also makes your deck entirely single prize Pokemon, which is always, I think, a big upside if you can do that. So again, Pawmot, definitely not a bad card, but it's just, it's difficult, right? How are we going to play Pawmot? You got to play it with a lot of draw. So that would be like with Raikou, or you play with Oricorio, just slow the game down and then hopefully just kind of slow draw into your combo and set yourself up to win the game. Like that's all I can really think about here. But as we see, we do have the Cyrus in the deck. It's just, you know, it's difficult because you can't Cyrus and Nemona in the same turn, you know, and that's always a bit tough. He's playing one Mesagosa, one Electric Generator. So yeah, not much to really say here other than here's Pawmot, literally the only Pawmot deck that I've actually been able to find place somewhat well in online tournaments yet. So we had to highlight it, you know, we had to. So there you go. Next up is going to be from the Breakfast Club, and this is Froggy X Wawin. I think everybody knows who Wawin is. One of the most prominent players in the tournament Pokemon Pocket competitive community here. This is going to be Altaria and Banette. This has been making its rounds recently, and actually like kind of was relevant last season and maybe even the season before as well. It's sort of just one of those fringe ways that people play Altaria. Not a bad card, not a bad strategy whatsoever. It's just a little bit different from the norm, you know, and I think that's really cool. 9-3, made it all the way to grand finals, ended up losing though to Mag Belly or Belly Mag or Magbolt. I don't know what you call this deck, but Magnezone Bellibolt. Really good run. And I think Banette is really, really cool. And I think it's just a really nice Pokemon to play on Mega Altaria, honestly. If you don't know what Banette does, it's got Night Bind. So it does 30 damage, and then your opponent cannot attach any energies to their active Pokemon. So it's basically about locking Pokemon in the active. And that's actually going to be pretty relevant, quite frankly. There's a lot of ways that people are generating energies and kind of rely on that. Suicune has Baxcalibur, you know, Bellibolt. Unfortunately, Bellibolt can get around this if they're playing like Zeraora and Elemental Switch or Pichu. Yeah, I think Banette's actually really cool. I think it's just a really nice Pokemon. And again, it's just another Psychic card. You can play with Mega Altaria. At the end of the day, you're playing Mega Altaria. That's pretty cool. What I did really want to include, or I guess mention this deck, the reason why I wanted to talk about this deck is because it's utilizing a Team Star Grunt. This is a card that no one's playing, and this is not a bad card whatsoever. I need people to know that so many Pokemon in the game have abilities. Basically every deck. We're talking Suicune, we're talking Baxcalibur, we're talking Zeraora. The list goes on and on. I don't even know. Maybe there's some that don't. Altaria doesn't have an ability. Qianpao doesn't have an ability. But basically, this is just a guaranteed energy discard from one of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. So this is going to be really good, especially in the early game into something like a Suicune or into like a Bellibolt Zero Aura deck. And I actually think this card is pretty cool, and it does have some good synergy with Banette. So a really nice little combo here. I think Walwin kind of cooked with this list. I'm not going to lie. So shout out to him. He made it to Grand Finals, which is incredible. I think Mega Altaria, just a really good card. I think you could play whatever with Mega Altaria and probably place well. But as we know, Walwin is a top level player, and this is a very it's what do you want me to say? I don't know. It's different. It's cool. That's why we're talking about it. So comment down below. What do you think? What do you think of Banette, Team Star? What do you think of Team Star Grunt? That's really the whole purpose here. I just want your opinions on what you think of Team Star Grunt. Definitely not a bad card. Probably a little bit underutilized actively in the moment. Next up, we have also at the Breakfast Club, the first annual Breakfast Club, actually. And this is Sukuna 123 from Spain. I'm about to show you perhaps the most confusing deck you've ever seen in your entire life. And this is Quaquaval. That's right. This is the only Quaquaval deck I have seen remotely do somewhat well. He went 4-4 at this tournament. Won some decks, lost to some decks, like there's really, he did beat Double Charizard, which is kind of a meme. But you know what? Shout out to this deck list. Let's take a look at it here. And I just need you to look at this deck. I just need you to look at it because what is this? What are we doing? We have a Goomy here with sticky membrane. We've seen some tech Goomies in here. The sticky membrane ability is pretty funny. It just stops your opponent from being able to attack because they need an extra energy. So it's just a way to stall the game out with Goomy, which is really funny. He's got one Oricorio in this deck. I don't think it lists what energy types he's playing, but I got to assume he's not playing lightning energies with this deck. So he's got one Goomy in here. He's got one Oricorio in here. Again, I think the entire concept somehow or for some reason is to just stall the game. I guess he just wants these Pokemon to just kind of sit and slow the game down. And now he's playing Quaquaval, but he's playing Memory Light Will. And I didn't understand this. I didn't know what's going on here because okay. So I think what's going on here is he's playing Quaxly. Which here says flip a coin if heads during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. But it only does 10 damage. It's only doing 10 damage. So I don't know what the strategy here is particularly. Other than I think that the entire concept here is to use Memory Light Quaquaval with Quaxly to stall. This is just a stall deck. I don't understand it. I don't think he tied any games though. So I just don't know what's going on here with this deck list. I don't really understand the strategy. This is not something I would ever choose to play, nor would I recommend you play this. And I just wanted to talk about it because I'm still so confused about this deck list and how, in fact, it ended up dealing or winning 4 out of its 8 matches. But anyway, dude, I don't know what's going on. Quaquaval's not a bad Pokemon. It's just so strange. 3 energies to deal 90 damage, but if you have 50 HP or less, you deal 150. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to stall a little bit, but you have to take damage to use the full effect of Torrent. So maybe the stall is just for chip damage to then maybe 1-hit KO with Hydro Kick with Torrent. I don't know. What's happening? What is this deck? I have no idea. I have literally no idea, but it went 4-4. It's Quaquaval. There it is. Comment down below. What do you guys think of Quaquaval? Next up here is going to be Big Slowpoke Fan. And I think we're all big Slowpoke fans. 8-2 made it to top 8 here. An incredible run. And this is going to be Chandelure. But guess what, guys? This is going to be Turbo Chandelure, which I think is really, really cool. You guys might have seen this, might have not. As we know, most people play Chandelure with Meowth. And they stall the game out and they play supporters. And at the end of the game, they go into Chandelure and they 1-hit KO Pokemon. That's the strategy people use with the past friends Chandelure. However, this is a different way to play it. You're actually playing it just with Graveyard, which discards a card from your hand and does 30 damage for 1 energy. Now, what's really cool though about Graveyard is that we're playing a ton of supporters. So it's basically a way to discard double supporter cards every turn. And if you go double Graveyard, you could go turn 3 or turn 4 and have, 6, 7, 8 supporter cards in your discard pile. So it's basically a way to accelerate the damage output for when you do go into Chandelure, which I think is really cool and super unique. So it's a way to be an aggressive deck and also play Chandelure. Now, the downside to this, quite frankly, is that, you know, you play a supporter card, but also have to discard one. So you're effectively just getting like half of the use out of your supporter cards, but you're going twice as fast. And I think that's kind of cool. So I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. He did go 8-2. So Chandelure is definitely like a fringe meta deck. People are familiar with Chandelure as a Pokemon, but I think this strategy is a little bit different from what maybe some people have seen before. So I wanted to highlight it. Graveyard Chandelure, kind of aggressive turbo Chandelure. I think that's really cool. Chandelure is a Gen 5 GOAT, by the way, certified gangster. I guess, I don't know. Shout out to Chandelure. Next up is going to be Golfer MT. Only went 4-2 at the Latam Pocket Weekly number 3. But I wanted to highlight this. I know this isn't like the most incredible record of all time, but this is Tapu Koko Bellibolt. Some people have been theorizing about this deck. He ended up getting squashed by Hosi, playing Hydreigon here in top 8, which you hate to see. But yeah, so this is like the other Pokemon that does kind of make sense to play with Bellibolt. Tapu Koko is a somewhat aggressive Pokemon. Going second, this card has always been absolutely insane. Bellibolt here loves having a ton of energies on the board. So Tapu Koko can generate additional energies to itself, which I think is cool. We have Zero Aura. We have Elemental Switch. I don't really think Tapu Koko is just in general that strong of a Pokemon right now. But for all of the people that were kind of theorizing or curious if Tapu Koko Bellibolt was like a strategy that made sense, here's just like one example. Somebody went 4-2. I don't think it's terrible. I think Bellibolt in general is broken. And this isn't very far off of how like we just play Bellibolt Zero Aura anyway. We just added the Tapu Kokos. Now, again, I do think you could just cut these 2 Tapu Kokos and you could play like 1 extra Ice Pop and 1 extra Elemental Switch and you're probably fine. You're probably just maybe even a better deck, if we're being honest. But I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, you know, there you go. There's nothing else to really say about this. Again, it really is just 2 Tapu Koko thrown into like an already established top tier archetype. I don't think it makes it better, but it is theoretically possible. So I just wanted to like have that as like a proof of concept for people that were curious. So there you go. A big shout out to Golfer MT. If any of these players that we're highlighting are watching this video, comment down below, share your input. Let us know about the deck list. Shout out to you guys because, you know, we love to see it, quite honestly. We really do. By the way, the last deck we're going to take a look at is Venusaur and Arboliva. No Armarouge in today's video. I apologize. I tried my best to find an Armarouge deck, and I literally just couldn't. Nobody's playing that. Nobody is even attempting to play Armarouge, and that is unfortunate. If there was an Armarouge placement, I would have put it in this video. I just couldn't find any, so I apologize. But this is going to be Toseizi, Mega Venusaur Arboliva. I've been kind of theory crafting a little bit with Arboliva. It's really not a bad Pokemon. It's actually effectively kind of a broken Pokemon, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so Arboliva here, you discard 1 Grass Energy. Unlike Skeledirge, you discard it from the Pokemon that you're trying to heal, but then you heal 60 damage, which is effectively an insane amount of damage. It is a stage 2 Pokemon. It's kind of a useless Pokemon other than this ability, so it's a little bit of an awkward card to try to play around or build around. This player here was playing Mega Venusaur with Chinglings and Arboliva with quick growth extracts and whatnot. So a very slow burn deck here, but a deck that honestly probably isn't even that bad. At the end of the day, like as long as your opponent isn't playing like any bench sniping, and if they have to go through the active Mega Venusaur, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to do that. This player went 6-3, by the way, had a really good run, lost to Blaziken. Oh wait, look, there's an Armarouge deck here, but look, it went 1-2. So I guess that's probably why I didn't showcase it. Lost to Blaziken, lost to Altarias a couple of times, which is probably going to be a tough go for Venusaur, but yeah, a very cool deck. And again, I haven't tested this. I don't know much about it, but I theorize it's just, you know, use Chinglings to really slow the game down. Hopefully you get Mega Venusaur on like turn 3 or turn 4. You go into it and then you keep it alive with Arboliva. Hopefully you don't get bench sniped and then you can maybe win the game. I think Arboliva is really strong. I just don't know. I still am not positive like what decks they want us to play Arboliva in. I kind of theorized that Meowscarada was actually the card in the Pokemon that they wanted us to pair with Arboliva, but they're both stage 2 Pokemon, which is always very, very difficult. I know Venusaur here is a stage 2 Pokemon, but I just am not a big believer in like pairing multiple stage 2 strategies together. It just makes decks very inconsistent. Now, one thing that I have been testing, and this is a bit of a tangent, is Executor EX. I think Executor EX with a single energy attack cost and the fact that we actually do have the Execute that can generate an additional energy on your first turn if you go second, is actually probably the best Pokemon I've been able to find so far to pair with Arboliva. So it's basically a way to play like Turbo Executor as we typically do, like Aggro Executor, but keep it alive even longer, because you can't use Lily, you can play Erica, so you could run like Ice Pops or Ericas alongside Arboliva and Executor EX. I'm not saying that that's like meta or anything, but it's something that I've been testing a little bit because I was curious. So if you guys wanted to take that idea and run with it, or if you just wanted to play this Venusaur deck, feel free. At the end of the day, I think that Arboliva is kind of a broken Pokemon. It's just, again, I don't really know how we're supposed to be playing it. Like it's sort of strange. Like we have a lot of Pokemon that get released this set, and there's just like not very apparent like strategies or like core concepts that they fit into. Like Armourouge is one of them. Arboliva is one of them. I think Quaquaval is another example of that. Like there's just such strange Pokemon. I think even Pawmot for to some degree. So I don't know, but I've been trying my best to kind of figure it out. I'm trying to put the pieces together. Here is an Arboliva deck, probably the best performing Arboliva deck that I've seen, 6-3 Mega Venusaur. Shout out to Big Boy Venusaur. This card is effectively insane. I know it's really difficult to get going. You need 4 energies. It's a stage 2 Pokemon, but it's got 240 HP, 240 with Lily and Arboliva. Like, good luck. You know what I mean? If you don't have, if you have to end up getting through this Venusaur, like you might not be able to. 120 poison and sleep off the attack. Mega Venusaur is an absolutely insane Pokemon. But this deck list is probably lacking in some consistency, I would imagine, for sure. He does play double Research, double Copycat, double Extract, double Pokeball. So, I mean, like, maybe, you know, I don't know. You know, like, I think grass-type decks are in a weird place right now, for sure, but there's definitely a lot more potential, maybe, that isn't been, like, fully tapped anyway. That's Arboliva. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. That's the video. That's all of the kind of the quirky off-meta decks that did well over this first week. Everything else we've already covered on the channel, or I consider to be like a meta deck. So that's what this video is all about. These are decks that really aren't in the metagame, but you know, popped off. They did something this week, which is cool. Anyway, that's the video. Comment down below, let me know what you guys think. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on the road to 50,000 subscribers. I haven't been asking people to subscribe recently, but we're really close to 50,000. So if you're watching this right now and you're not subscribed to the channel, just consider, you know, hitting that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. It gets us closer to 50,000, which would be really cool. Also, make sure you check out the link down in the description below and register for the biggest tournament in history was what some people are speculating. We'll have to see. $1,500 prize pool, though. It's going to be a big one. We're going to stream it here on the channel this weekend. I'm really excited. We'll have a gameplay showcase tomorrow. Maybe some Chiempao, maybe something meta that we haven't talked about yet. I don't know, but we'll probably do some gameplay type showcase tomorrow. And then Friday, I'll give you what I believe are like the best deck lists going into the weekend. But that's today's video. Peace out, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah. Bye.